Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. President Donald Trump has said that he expects to meet Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. Meanwhile, interim leader Delcy Rodriguez has rejected Trump's claim of U.S. control, insisting Venezuela remains sovereign. According to Ukrainian officials, Russian drone strikes has hit Kyiv just before midnight of Friday, killing 4 people, including an emergency medic, and injuring at least 19 people, with 14 hospitalized. Military administration had reports buildings and critical infrastructure were being damaged as well. According to U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, India's trade deal with the United States stalled after Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not make a call to President Donald Trump to seal the agreement, leading to Washington doubling tariffs on Indian goods to 50%, including a 25% penalty over India's Russian oil purchases. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance urged Europe to take Donald Trump seriously on Greenland after Washington floated buying the Danish territory and did not rule out military action to secure it. Israeli strikes killed at least 13 Palestinians across the Gaza Strip on Thursday after the Israeli military said it targeted a site following a failed rocket launch, with medics reporting that 4 people, including children, were killed in a tent strike in Khan Yunis, while Hamas claims more than 1,100 Israeli ceasefire violations since October. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will visit Japan Tuesday to meet Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi in Nara. The summit will include discussions and a dinner on regional global issues. A South Korean government commissioner report has found that the December 2024 Jeju Air Boeing 737-800 crash, which killed 179 of 181 people on board, might not have been fatal without a concrete mound supporting a localizer antenna that failed international safety standards. As victims' families and lawmakers now press for accountability over alleged government negligence. U.S. President Donald Trump said he held a great meeting with Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan, calling him very successful and praising the U.S. government's 10% stake in the chip maker. Intel shares have jumped in extended trading, up about 75% since the CHIPS Act investment. Now for this hour, we start with U.S. The Portland Police Bureau has confirmed that the FBI is leading the investigation into a shooting involving federal agents in East Portland. Portland Police Chief Bob Day has stated that while local police secured the scene and provided initial medical aid, the FBI Portland Field Office is the lead agency for the federal investigation. This comes as ICE federal agents shot 2 people in Portland, prompting local leaders to demand an end to an immigration crackdown there, while also urging calm in community known for political dissent. The Department of Homeland Security says that the shooting occurred while Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted stop on a vehicle carrying 2 people allegedly affiliated with the Tren de Aragua gang. Let's have a look at what the Portland Police Chief has shared.
Approximately 2:18 this afternoon, Portland police officers responded to the 10,000 block of Southeast Main Street on the report of a shooting. So it came in via a 911 call. Officers confirmed that federal agents had been involved in a shooting. Portland police were not involved in that incident. About 6 minutes later, at 2:24 p.m., officers received information, once again through dispatch, that a man who had been shot was calling and requesting help in the area of Northeast 146th and East Burnside. Our officers responded. We found a male and a female with apparent gunshot wounds. Officers applied a tourniquet and summoned emergency medical personnel. The patients were transported to local hospital, and their conditions at this time are unknown. Officers had determined that the 2 people who were injured in the shooting involving the federal agents from the earlier call. PPB officers secured both scenes, and this is a federal investigation. It's being led by the FBI. This is not any way, shape, or form immigration related on our end. We do not know the facts of this case. We are simply providing that traditional investigative support and perimeter support.
Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at this, what is going on with US? We are seeing so many news like this since last year, but particularly in the past 48 hours. What's happening in US?
Good afternoon, Asuma. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Thank you.
It's total, I would say, disorder, and this has come after J.D. Vance announced that the ICE staff or the custom duties and border protection staff are legally immune to any kind of actions taken by them or words to that effect. It has empowered the government officials working for the ICE with, I would say, eternal kind of a courage to resort to firing at the suspected or potentially dangerous or maybe kind of a imaginary kind of a threat. At the moment, I personally feel that too much of empowerment has been done. The complete law has been weaponized to an extent that even slightest of suspicion is triggering a proactive kind of a measure which is being called as a defensive measure for protection of the government officials operating under the umbrella of ICE or the customs duties and the border protection duties, which is part of the homeland security. Now, at this rate, it's going to antagonize the public, and I personally feel they may come on the street against the ICE department. While the angle of Venezuelan linkage is being thrown up, however, the same thing in absence of any kind of concrete evidence is actually going to put the government officials in thick soup. So therefore, it do better to them that minimum force as applied as per the teaching of security protection duties should be applied by the government officials. And they are resorting to extreme steps, which is highly dangerous, and it may give an ugly turn to the entire mandate which they have been empowered with, and people may take violent steps against the ICE staff. Back to you, Asuma.
Thank you very much, Major General, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving the focus to Europe, the European Union has said that it has discussed how Europe should respond if the United States moves forward with a possible bid to acquire Greenland. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said the bloc has examined potential European reactions, calling recent messages from Washington on Greenland extremely concerning. Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark and a strategic part of the Arctic region. The comments come as the White House confirmed that President Donald Trump and his national security team are holding active discussions about a possible U.S. purchase of Greenland, even as Washington insists the president remains committed to the NATO alliance. Let's listen in.
Of course, the messages that we hear regarding Greenland are extremely concerning, and we have had discussions also among the Europeans. If this is a real threat, and if it is, then what would be our response? So, as Denmark has been a good ally for United States, and all these statements are not really helping the stability of the world, I would say.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, it seems like Trump sees not just Greenland, but Europe differently than his predecessors or his previous U.S. President or the administration. Why do you think Trump sees Europe not like close ally, and there's a huge difference of his approach to Europe?
Yeah, excellent question you have raised. You see, the entire evolving dynamics during Donald Trump 2.0 tenure as president is witnessing departure from the traditional norms and practices which USA as a superpower has been exercising. And in that departure, what comes out is belligerence and aggressive stance taken by Donald Trump and his team towards extending the sphere of influence and dominance. Why is he doing it is because of a maybe real, maybe perceived threat of Russian and Chinese vessels and thronging along the coastline. Just for our viewers to understand, Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory, like you have rightly highlighted in your preamble, and it is a part of Denmark. Also, if you allow me, I wish to remind the audience and also American audience who are listening to this particular discussion is that in 1951, USA and Denmark, they have gone in for a strategic partnership, and which has led to development of bases. A few bases have come up in Cold War 2.0, and some of them also were existing during Cold War 1.0. So at the least, Donald Trump and his team would do good to revisit these kind of agreements, and that would actually give them the power and authority to expand the bases which are already existing. Acquiring or buying off Greenland, which is a piece of land roughly around 2,700 kilometers north-south and 12 to 1,400 kilometers east-west, with a coastline of roughly or maybe more, little more than 34,000 kilometers, is actually going to create a precedent in the world order, wherein countries who similarly poised elsewhere in the world also may get encouraged to extend their sphere of influence by forcible means. So this is going against the rules-based international order, which I do not think USA should actually undertake. And second, coming straight to the point that you are trying to dive into, is that in my opinion it is a wrong thing happening. It should not be extended beyond a limit, because if that happens, US should remember that it is a member of NATO, a founding member of the NATO, and Denmark is also a NATO member, and therefore if at all there is a threat evolving, then perhaps they would do well if the entire NATO comes collectively to ensure some defensive countermeasure adopted in Greenland. Last but not the least is that why is he looking at Europe the way he is looking at? He is looking at Europe the way he is looking at is primarily is driven by the fact that the economics of USA is actually taking a nosedive. 38 trillion US dollar economy debt means around 128 to 130% of debt to GDP ratio. What it means is that they have to dole out something close to 1 trillion US dollars simply for debt interest servicing, and to run the country they require something close to 6 trillion US dollar, to which they are generating a revenue of just about 4 trillion. There is a deficit of 2 trillion here, and 1 trillion required for the interest servicing. 3 trillion is a hell of a big amount. And in the given or evolving geopolitical dimensions and the geoeconomic dynamics, the USA is feeling very insecure and threatened, and therefore it is trying to minimize its responsibility elsewhere outside the America, where it has been taking the burden of expenditure, be it for the security, safety, or otherwise. Therefore, USA is thinking of pulling back from Europe also propping up Russia to be a peer group member for G8, restoration of the G8 membership status, as also bringing Russia back to the mainstream geopolitical ecosystem in the world order, so that the deep embrace it has gone in with China is prevented. And also with regard to China, Europe is totally dependent on China, so big threat as far as America and Donald Trump is concerned as of now is that China, Russia and the countries of the BRICS are posing a big threat towards the de-dollarization, which is actually creating a lot of trauma in the minds of the Donald Trump and his team. De-dollarization, when I say what I mean is at the peak period, dollar is to dominate something close to 86 to 89% as the international reserve currency. However, during pandemic, it fell down to almost about 54%. Now I believe it is bounced back to 56%. Experts say that whenever the dominance of dollar goes below, slips down below 50%, that will be a kind of an irreversible phenomena of the declining superpower status. And no superpower would like to lose its supremacy and authority. So there is a big scare, and therefore Donald Trump, in the big design of operations, he's trying to crack and whip up his effort to come down heavily on against the BRICS, and also prevent de-dollarization as much as possible. Back to you, Soma.
Thank you for highlighting that. Just building on your answer, Major General, two questions from me. One is that, so does NATO have any card to play to protect their territory, or, knowing that US is also, of course, within NATO alliance, but since it's threatening another NATO country, how will NATO play this out? Is NATO strong enough? And also my second question is, maybe you can just briefly touch upon this, but why do many countries, kind of forget to protect their land in the north? Just like Denmark didn't maybe do enough for Greenland, that's why this is happening. And then again, many countries in the world, they tend to forget about the importance of their land in the north.
Greenland is a huge territory. It is 2/3 of Greenland falls under the sphere of Arctic, and as we all know that the ice is melting along the Arctic. There are new maritime navigation routes, sea routes opening up, and this will entail a lot of geostrategic implications. Therefore, the Arctic Council, which at the moment comprises of 8 countries, they based on the geographic location, they dominate, or their presence is very much there. However, coming to your first question as to why not NATO is able to look after its landed property. NATO is all by itself, less America and Canada, is not capable. That is the European Union and the UK. They are not capable, nor the capacity permits them as of now, because they have had a kind of a free lunch all the while during Cold War 1.0 and the time period till now in Cold War 2.0. So therefore, to actually upgrade their status from zero responsibility and burden to some responsibility and accountability to defend themselves and look after their landed estate as of now is near impossible. Therefore, they are dependent on America. NATO, anything to do with NATO, less USA, is as good as a defunct kind of an establishment. Therefore, their dependency is heightened because of traditional support they have been having from USA. Coming to the second point that you have raised, I personally feel that there are no better ways than diplomacy and dialogue. They need to talk it out, even if Donald Trump is hell-bent and intransigent in his approach. There are ways and means to actually defend and ensure security and safety of the people of America. Presently, he's focusing on BRICS. Russia and China being founding members of BRICS, they continue to actually expand their sphere of influence through the Arctic and coming down towards the Atlantic. in a very convenient and comfortable manner, which is posing a threat to America. So therefore, at the moment, America feels that it is the only country in the world which can deter or prevent expansion of the BRICS domination in the world order. BRICS as such has got 10 members as on today. There are good about 11 members who are waiting, and roughly 50 more countries are waiting to join the BRICS. And the GDP of BRICS earlier in 1995, although it had not come into existence, was just about 16%. But the BRICS has actually grown in its size in the GDP and overtaken the G7 leading economies, and is touching a percentage of 36.7 to 37.3% of global GDP in PPP terms. And the leading economy, which was there in 1995 at 43.06% of GDP in PPP terms, has gone down to 29.7 to 30%, and therefore it's on a declining mode. And to me, what appears is that it is all the geoeconomics which is driving the current agenda, which is very, very dangerous for America to undertake in this aggressive manner. It may bounce back on their face and may turn out to be highly disadvantageous in times ahead.
With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudakarji for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on the focus on to Middle East. Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip has killed at least 11 Palestinians, including children. The attacks came after a rocket fired from Gaza towards Israel fell short and landed near a hospital. Airstrikes hit a tent in southern Khan Yunis, a school sheltering displaced families in Jabalia, and locations in central and northern Gaza, causing multiple casualties. Israel said it targeted Hamas militants, rocket launch sites, and terror infrastructure. The ceasefire agreed in October is fragile, with both sides accusing each other of violations. Israel has not opened crossings or allowed some humanitarian staff into Gaza, while Hamas continues to assert control and refuses to disarm. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Peter Baum. He's the editor at Weekly Blitz, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Baum, for joining us. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Asuma.
Thank you. Now, as you know, both sides blame each other for this ceasefire violations. What's your analysis on this situation? Are they ready to move towards phase 2? And do you think U.S. is still interested in brokering and pushing the ceasefire to phase 2? Because we see U.S. it seems like they're very busy and they have handful of a lot of things going on.
You're quite right, and to answer your question directly, yes, I do think Israel and the US both want to move to stage 2 of the Trump peace proposal. But this particular story is quite remarkable in itself. Paradoxically, it's a major loss for Hamas, not because of the injuries and deaths suffered, and a major win for Israel from a public relations point of view, and let me explain why to your audience and listeners. From December the 31st, as far as I've been tracking it, Hamas has attempted and failed to launch 4 projectiles aimed at Israel in order to create 2 things. The first thing, damage, but the second thing, Hamas are in dire need of a major public relations win. They need to be seen to be back on the front pages of all the newspapers and to be the first or second item along the major media news channels in Europe and elsewhere. Now, the 3 previous launches, Israel successfully destroyed, and there was very, very little news across all the media channels about the destruction of the 3 previous attempts. And don't forget, I'm a political researcher, and my speciality is in the Israel-Palestinian issue. So it was quite remarkable to me that the 3 previous attempts, which were attempted but Israel managed to locate and destroyed, hardly got any news. And again, this was all designed to give Hamas a major PR win. Now, the 4th one, which happened about 20 hours or so ago now, Hamas were able to launch, but Israel's technology is so sophisticated that from the information I've received, Israel was able to understand and detect that the missile fired was going to fall short. So she allowed the trajectory of she allowed the missile to land. Her response was, as we've seen, such that Hamas medical authorities were reporting 11 dead. Now, in normal circumstances, this story alone would have been at least the 1st, 2nd or 3rd story amongst all the major mainstream news channels, including the BBC, CNN, RT in France, etc., Al Jazeera. I've spent the last 45 minutes trawling through all the papers, all the media news channels which I have at my easy disposal, and even Al Jazeera has it as its 6th story, although Al Jazeera has stated that there have been 14 deaths and not the 11 that the Palestinians have promoted, and yet every other major news channel has ignored it. Now, why? Clearly, because there are other things going on in the world, such as Venezuela, such as Iran, such as the Syria-Kurdish issue, which I know your own channel has been covering quite in detail. There's what's going on domestically in the United States with the Minneapolis shootings. So Hamas's timing of trying to get themselves back on the front pages has failed dramatically. Israel, being aware of this, took the opportunity to strike back. And as we know, whenever Israel strikes back, they never, according to the media, they never ever kill Hamas operatives. It's always women and children that have been killed in the strike backs, according to the media. Well, I'm afraid for Hamas, their opportunistic attempts to try and get themselves back in the media spotlight has failed dramatically. Israel, from this particular destruction of the launcher and the 3 previous ones, which also managed to locate further underground tunnels previously hidden from Israeli view, was another major military win for the Israelis. And from a PR view, as I've said, this story, other than being the 5th story on Al Jazeera, I think Reuters have covered it some time ago, and naturally all the Israeli press, which is quite right, have been covering the story, but the world's media have completely ignored it, and this will give comfort to Israel and will be a major blow from a public relations point of view to Hamas.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Peter Baum for joining us today from London and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Japan. Local media has reported that central Japan's Yamanashi Prefecture has ordered the evacuation of nearly 150 residents following the outbreak of a forest fire on Mount Ogi. As of today morning, no damage to infrastructure or surrounding homes had been reported. The Japan Self-Defense Forces deployed several helicopters to assist firefighting efforts. According to local fire authorities, the fire first reported around 10:40 a.m. local time by a resident who noticed smoke on the mountain had spread at least 150 meters from residential areas. Now we move on to our tech news. French health tech company Withings is making a big push into longevity with its new Body Scan 2 smart scale unveiled at CES in Las Vegas. Priced at $600, the AI-powered scale tracks more than 60 biomarkers to detect early health risks like high blood pressure and prediabetes. with embedded electrodes, a retractable handle, and a phone syncing. It aims to help users age healthier through better data. CES attendee Doris Poon praised the device, saying it helps people understand their health before problems arise. Withing says the body scan 2 will be available in the second quarter of 2026. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.